Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming back. As Ines was saying, my name is Daniel Ospina. I'm an organization designer, which basically means I work with groups of people, helping them to figure out how to collaborate, how to work together effectively. I'm doing this through my company Conductal as well. I'm a visiting lecturer in Oxford University, where we work basically with people who manage really large projects in the hundreds of millions or billions of budget and needs to deal with complexity. So today I'm going to give you 3 rough ideas of what you're seeing that's emerging on this space, some of the weak signals, and where we think that's going. But quite often to look into the future, where we need to start is by looking into the past and understanding how things have changed. Over the last century, what happened is that we took huge advantage of this innovation on a social technology. That was the division in between thinkers and doers. The company that is most famous for having used this is the Ford Motor Company, and Henry Ford has this great phrase that he says, we'll make a car whichever way, whichever color anyone wants, as long as it's black. Meaning that they use the standardization, they use a small minority who was making decisions on how the work should be carried, how it should be executed, by a large group who will then execute and build on those products. And this innovation allows us to build pretty much everything that we have around us today, at a tremendous scale and with huge efficiency. And then things started to change, especially in the last couple of decades. The advancements in communication and transportation technology have made that the scale at which we are interacting becomes global. Suddenly the ideas that we have here can be broadcast and have effect across the world instantly, and those conversations have an effect in a matter of days. We go through other advancements in technology into faster prototyping, faster scaling technologies that allow us to design a product, build it, test it, and then build millions of copies in a matter of weeks instead of months or years. All this makes that we have a whole bunch of complexity. Everything starts becoming seriously interweb. And then we have challenges like, for example, this prediction that says that by 2050, if we continue on the same course we are, there will basically be no more fish in the sea. All our fish stocks will have collapsed to the point that there will be no fish left, or it will be economically impossible to exploit those fishes. At the same time, the United Nations says that to stop that from happening, we'll have to lose 20 million jobs globally. But then PwC predicts that by 2030, we'll lose about 40% of jobs in America to artificial intelligence. So we have these very contradictory, very complex challenges, where on one side we have the potential for mass unemployment, the other side climate, food security catastrophe, and all the parts interact. And a lot of the simple problems that we have to deal, we're delegating those to automation. A lot of the execution tasks have been taken on by machines, and we have been able, finally, to build machines that never break down. That's software. They only require a tiny amount of energy to keep on going, and they're very efficient. So the decisions that we end up having are very complex, and we have more and more people facing more and more complex challenges. So suddenly, having just a minority at the top that's making decisions for a large group of people becomes inefficient. There is too much variety. And as well, we love personalization. That idea that we will all be happy with a black car makes absolutely no sense in today's society. We want everything personalized, customized, that matches our needs, because there is so much noise, so much information out there, that if it's not very directly relevant, we don't care. So then, what happens? What happens with our organizations? We start going into a different model. A model where we have more and more people who need to have the authority to make decisions. And that happens because we're unable to answer those complex questions that we had before. So we say that we're starting with a new paradigm. We had this question: how do we approach complexity? How do we approach the scale? How do we approach fast change? a piece of change that we have never before in history seen, and we've never been adapted to. So the traditional response to this new paradigm has been more network organizations, where we push power to the front lines, we give them more authority, and then we create a web of relationships, a web of connections, so people can exchange information in between them without having to escalate through a hierarchy, who will process it and then go down the other way. It takes a lot more time. So we create that web of relationships, and we talk about network organizations. And with this model of network organizations, and to deal with these more complex tasks, we start bringing different disciplines, different skills together to solve those complex tasks. And so the interdisciplinary teams started to become a common feature of all organizations. And then, in the last few years, change continued to accelerate. And suddenly the mix of expertise that we need for those teams is very, very varied. And we need expertise for small periods of time. So quoting a CEO from a large healthcare organization, he says, we have these teams, and we're trying to improve the way they're working. And the moment we go and try to look at this team and grasp it, error. The team is gone. It was banded, it formed, they deliver a project, they disbanded. And now all these different people, they're forming other different teams because the projects are changing, because the market is changing, because the expertise that we needed to solve that challenge, they're changing. And even more than that, sometimes even half the people that we need for one project, they are not even inside our organization. They come from freelancers, from experts, from universities, from other organizations who are working together with us to try to solve these very complex challenges, where we need very punctual, very precise, very deep expertise, but also people who can understand how other disciplines work together. So we almost are going beyond teams, and it's very problematic because most of the research that we had from the last 100 years, most of the practice, most of the techniques that were developed to improve teamwork, to make it efficient, were based on we actually have a group of people that is fixed. And now those groups of people are gone. We have more and more freelancers that come together. We have network organizations, we have networked consultancies. We don't even know what to call them yet. Because are they actually a company? Well, no, half of them are not in that company, half of them are in another company. Or they will be there just for 2 months. And so what happens is that we need to start figuring out a way in which we can build these teams really quickly, make sure that people develop trust, that they actually collaborate, that they're willing to share their weaknesses, share how they're ineffective themselves, so the other people can supplement that, and they can pull strengths together. And how do you then get people to actually be vulnerable at scale with large groups of people? So what we're starting to see emerge now is instead of networks, we're starting to see community platforms. So what are communities? A community is based on a network, a web of relationships, and on top of that, a shared identity, shared mission, shared values, shared beliefs. You put the two together, and through a process of rituals, of symbolism, of bringing these people and cultivating that shared identity, you start to create belonging. And what belonging does is a phenomenon called as trust transfer, because we all feel that we are somewhat the same sort of people. If I trust one of you, then I'll trust the other. And then if we frame those conversations around, I can actually express who I am, I can actually express what I'm good at and what I'm bad at, then I'm happy to share that with someone who is somewhat a stranger, but belongs to the same community. So the way we're starting to build organizations is changing from these anonymous platforms to something that is emphasizing culture way more than ever before, where identity becomes the base foundation for how people come and work together. And then we need a whole other range of mechanisms that are only being invented to make those interactions smooth. Blockchain, cryptocurrencies, and all these other technologies are starting to encroach in that space. But as well, then we need to figure out, okay, so if everyone is very free to move, if half the people are not even part of the same organization, but to other organizations and so on, how do we make decisions together? When it's a project, it's very simple. We get the team works on it. But when it's a large group of people, when we need someone to accept a decision that will be against their personal best interest, but in the best interest of the group, then how do we do it? Traditionally, what we've done in the private sector is we develop a sandclub kind of model for governance, for making decisions. We start with a large group of people, say shareholders, who delegate power to very few, and then in turn delegate power to a large group of people. It's the opposite of a direct democracy. Why did we do this? Because when we have a direct democracy, everyone needs to be aware of the decisions that they're making, everyone needs to be very well informed, and that means that there's a lot of information that everyone needs to process, so we can only make very few decisions at a time. So we kind of need to delegate. But this idea of delegating all power to a very few individuals is based on a conception, on a notion that power is absolute, that there is only one sort of power. Albeit, that's not really how many of our societies have worked. In fact, there is different sorts of power, different functions. In tribes, we used to have a priest, a shaman, and then on the other side, a warrior chief. One was in charge of administrative events, particularly defense of the tribe. The other one was in charge of enforcing the identity, the values, almost a judiciary system. In Western civilization, during the Middle Ages, we have the Pope and the kings. Even today, we still have that division of power. And our modern democracies have taken this a step further, where we have the executive, the judicial, and the legislative power. So from systems thinking, from disorientation and research, we know that there is 5 essential functions that any organization needs to perform to remain viable. We need to be able to do the thing that we're meant to be doing, the operation. We need to coordinate in between the different parts that allow us to produce this thing, to carry this service, this software, to do whatever it is that we're here to do. We need to change the way we're operating continuously, because change has become a constant. We need to be able to define together as a group a common direction, a common vision of how the future should look like, and how do we look like in that future to fit. And then we need to reinforce that common identity, the thing that is constant and keeps us together and allows us to build trust quickly. So we can actually start to think that in the traditional model, instead of compacting all these different powers within one person, we can create multi-centered organizations where there are different functions, different centers of power. A little bit like going back to those tribes, but in a modern way. And we're already starting to see these emerging slightly on the way we map organizations. This is from a software called Glassroad that is used to map holacratic organizations. And they start to be created by clusters, circles or circles. Or this is coming from a model where different systems, autonomous systems, each with a defined function, are mapped together and they interact with the environment, each having their own functions. Then further, with network analysis, we start having, this is made with a software that maps conversations in Slack. So we actually see who's talking with whom. And then when we analyze the data from those conversations, we can see that there is very specific clusters of topics. And we can create different networks. And then we can identify a specific process for each of those kinds of conversations. When we map them together with what the research is saying, we encounter a fantastic correlation, actually. That different functions of the organization are carried in different centers of power. But together, the issue is that change is terribly hard. We know the dream. We want to all feel comfortable working together, be very flexible, be agile, and so on. But when we try to implement that, we stumble. According to McKinsey, 70% of business transformations fail. Miserable failures. According to Forbes magazine, 84% of digital transformations fail. And even more than that, as a friend says, there is a beginning to a digital transformation, but there is not an end. We struggle to change considerably, and that is because the traditional way we have thought about change was very much about imposing a new reality from the outside in, from the top down. Albeit, we are as much shifted by what we are trying to do as by the effects that the environment has upon us. The first gentleman here, he is being subject to an experiment. Everyone else is an actor. As you can see, the other ones going into the room, they're facing the wall of the elevator. Don't know if you noticed, but no one ever does that. This experiment was conducted hundreds of times. Most frequently, the person in the middle, who was the subject of the experiment, they didn't even realize that they had turned. There is another version where the rest of the crowd keeps giving them middle turns every few minutes, every floor. And this person keeps on swinging with them. Our environment affects us tremendously, and most often we're not even conscious that that is happening. That's why any change process, anytime we try to go into these more network, more identity-based, more trust-based, more community-based flexible models, we need to go in a dialectic change process where we change ourselves a little bit and we change the environment a little bit. And that allows us to change ourselves in turn and then change the environment. It starts by a small group that then grows. Imagine, think of it as a wheel. You cannot throw the wheel too far, but you can make it turn faster. And that's the idea. And you start with change of conceived as a movement, as a seed, as an idea that is powerful enough that will rally a group of people around them, that will start to implement new ideas. And the success of those ideas, the early success, will encourage, will light the fire to then grow. And then build this continuous process of change that is based both on a bold vision, but very concrete, fast iterations that then affect how the other people are perceiving their own environment and encourage them to change it in turn. So, to not only talk the talk, but walk the walk a little bit. Now we're saying that it's about architecture and conversations in between different people. Let me start by doing that. So I'm going to invite you for the next few minutes. I'll give you a single point to start that roughly will have 3 minutes to find 2 other people, at least one of them who you haven't met yet, in this room, and discuss what you think of these ideas. And then we'll open up to the floor. Please, go ahead.